Hello, today we're going to try to find the slope from a table, and we're going to use two methods. One's the informal method, and the second is the slope formula we learned about in a previous lesson, where we use 2 points. And you can see tables give us lots of ordered pairs, x and y ordered pairs. So I'm going to start with the informal method, the new method, and since we're talking about slope, we're going to be talking about the change in our y values, and we're going to look for the change in our x values. So slope is always the change in y over the change in x. So I'm going to start with the y column, and I'm going to look and see and ask myself, what is the difference between 7 and 2? Or in other words, going from 2 to 7, it looks like it's a change of 5. I'm moving up 5. So let's see if this happens again. From 7 to 12, again, we're going up 5. We're adding 5. So if I look at this, from 12 to 17 is adding 5, and from 17 to 22 is adding 5. So this is a consistent or a constant rate of change on the y column. So I'm going to write that rate of change is 5. Now we're going to go to the x column. I'm going to start at 3. Again, I'm looking to see what the difference is between 6 and 3. And I notice if I'm starting at 3 and I go to 6, that's a change of 3. Or in other words, I'm moving up 3. From 6 to 9, it's also adding 3. And this continues 9 to 12, adding 3, and 12 to 15, adding 3. So that's consistent. It's a constant rate of change. And so the change in my x's are 3. So we can say the slope, or sometimes referred to as m, is 5 over 3. So you can see this is the exact same table, side by side. So if we're going to use 2 points, and I have many to choose from, I'm going to choose the 2 easiest points. So these are all x and y's. So I'm going to consider this my x1, and this is my y1. This will be my x2 and my y2. And if you recall, the formula says that we start with y2 minus y1, which is a change in our y's, and then I take my x2 value and subtract my x1 value. So y2, we've said, is our number 7, and then we're supposed to subtract our y1 value, which is 2. So now I'm going to move on to our x2 value. So x2 value is 6, and I'm going to subtract our x1 value, which is 3. And when we do this, 7 minus 2 would be 5, and 6 minus 3 would be 3. So we again have a slope of 5 over 3. So it turns out that either way, we're going to get the same slope. Let's look at this again. A different table has a different pattern. So let's start the informal pattern again. We're going to start with the change in y over change in x. I'm going to start again with the y column, which feels awkward because it's the second column. But if I look at 9 and go to 7, in other words, the difference between 7 and 9, well, this time we're going down 2. So we're going to write that as a minus 2 or a negative 2. Let's see if this is a consistent pattern. 7 to 5. Oh, yes, that would be moving down 2. 5 to 3 is down 2, negative 2 or minus 2. And the pattern continues. So we can say that the change in y from one y to the next is minus 2 or negative 2. So now let's look at our change in our x's. You may notice that we're going from one negative number to the next, and sometimes that can be a little bit challenging. If you have a number line available, you can see that we're actually moving up each one of these moving up. In fact, if you wanted to, you could start with numbers that make it more clear. For instance, from 1 to 3, so it would be moving up 2, and from 3 to 5, we're moving up 2. So if you thought about this on the number line, if I was at -3 and I moved to -1, I'd be again going up 2. And from -1 to +1, that would also be moving up 2. So our change in our axis is a constant rate of change. It's 2. So if I look at this, I need to reduce this or simplify this. -2 divided by +2 would be -1. So we'd prefer to call the slope -1. So now let's try this again with the formula. So the slope formula says if we have y2, we subtract y1, and then x2, we subtract x1. And so again, when we have many values to choose from, I think it'd be wise to choose probably the easiest numbers to work with. And just to clarify, we could work with any particular ordered pair we wanted to. For instance, if I wanted to choose that ordered pair and this ordered pair, that would be just fine. It doesn't matter. The pairs do not have to be next to each other. So we can use numbers that look like they're fairly easy to work with. So I'm going to start with labeling. I'm going to call this my x1 and this my y1. And then we're going to call this ordered pair my x2 and my y2. So again, they are ordered pairs even if they're an ordered pair in a table. So I'm going to replace my y values. I'm going to start with my y2. So I'm going to use 3, and I'm going to take away my y1, which is 5. Then I'm going to move to my x2 right here. My x2 is also 3, and I'm going to take away my x1, which happens to be 1. So 3 take away 5 would give me -2, and 3 take away 1 would give me 2. And we've seen this before. -2 divided by +2, we could simplify to 1. So our slope in this case is -1 simplified. All right, so our last set we're going to look at, you may have noticed the tables or our horizontal tables. And this sometimes can be a little bit tricky because when we work with slope, the change in y is our top value, and the change in x is our bottom value. And because of the way the table's written, we're going to see our x values on top, change it on top, and then our change in y values on bottom. But remember, we really need to be very aware that we are doing the change in y first over the change in x second. So I'm going to start with just a change in y's and write that. So I remember to put that on top. So if we start at 2, go to 3, that's a change of 1. We're going up 1. And this table consistently changes by 1. So it would be fair to say that our change in y is 1. And I'm going to immediately put it up on top because change in y's go on top. Now we're going to move on to our, change in x's. Again, it may be confusing for us to see that -2 to 1 would be going up 3, but when we go from our next 1 to 4, I can see it's going up 3 clearly. 4 to 7, it's moving up 3, and 3 to 10, it's moving up 3. So constant rate of change, and so we have 3. So our slope or our m value would equal 1/3. So now again, we're going to go to the table. We're going to go to our formula, which is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And so I'm going to label a set of ordered pairs. Doesn't matter. We can use any ordered pairs we want. Again, I'm going to choose probably what I consider easier numbers to work with. This is x1, this is y1. I'm going to call this x2, and this is y2. You could choose any order pairs you want. They do not have to be next to each other. So we're going to replace our y2 with 4, and then we're going to go to our y1, and we're going to take away 3. Then we're going to move on to our x2, which is also 4, and we're going to take away our x1, which would be 1. 4 minus 3 would give me 1, and 4 minus 1 would give me 3. So consistently, either way, we're going to get 1 over 3. So thanks for listening, and I hope this was helpful. Take care.